Okay, today we are going to start learning about how to solve two-step equations. I'm really excited for this. I wish we were in class together to learn this because learning to solve equations is so helpful and so useful and can make solving some problems really easy. But first, you need to learn how to solve a two-step equation. So you last week already practiced solving one-step equations. So something like this, 5x equals 45. And last week I showed you that I like to draw the wall. That just is there to remind me that whatever I do on one side, I also have to do on the other. Then we have an invisible multiplication sign. So the opposite of multiply is divide. Divide by 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we have 1x. But we don't actually have to write the 1. So it's just x equals, and then 45 divided by 5 is 9. So that's what you learned about last week, or that's what you were reminded of last week. You learned that back, I think, in at least 6th grade or something like that. Well, a two-step equation is going to be very similar to that, but it's going to take a little bit longer. That one only took one step. The one step was to divide by 5 on both sides. Now we're going to have an equation, and let's start with this one. 2x plus 5 equals 13. Now notice that we don't just have something multiplied or just have something added. We have both of those things together. So I always start with my wall, just because it reminds me that whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. That's not like a math rule that you have to draw that wall. That's just like my preference. Okay, now there are multiple ways to think about or to help you remember how to solve a two-step equation because the order does matter. So our goal is to get x by itself. We really want, in the end, to have something that says x equals with a number. And the x has nothing around it. So that means we have to get rid of this 2, and we have to get rid of this 5. But again, the order does matter. We're going to get rid of the things that are farther away from the x first. What I mean by that is not like how I chose to space it out, right? That's not what I mean. What I mean is multiplying is kind of like glue. These two are stuck together, and then adding and subtracting is just kind of like chilling on the outside. So we need to get rid of this plus 5 first. And yes, it has to be in that order. So the opposite of a plus 5 is a minus 5 because we're trying to get rid of a plus 5. So the way we get rid of a plus 5 is to subtract 5. And if I do it on one side, I have to subtract 5 on the other side of my wall. Then a positive 5 minus 5 is 0, but I don't actually have to write 0. So now the only thing left is my 2x, so I'll bring that down, equals, and then 13 minus 5 is 8. Now it's just a one-step equation. Now it's like something you are familiar with. We have 2 times x. We need to split these apart. Okay, so remember how I said it's like glue, they're stuck together? Well, division is the thing that like cuts them apart. So I'm going to divide by 2 to cut apart the 2 and the x. Divide by 2. So remember, 2 divided by 2 is like 1x, but we don't actually have to write the 1. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4, so x equals 4. Now, we can go back and check our work to make sure we did it correct. The way we do that is by plugging in this answer back into this equation. So what that would look like is 2 times, not 2 times x, but 2 times 4 plus 5. So notice the only difference here is that I put a 4 instead of the x, equals 13. And now let's check. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. And yes, 13, that is the answer that we were looking for. So we know we got that correct. That is your very just introduction to solving two-step equations.